All right. What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode.
Episode 2.
Yes. So we were talking a bit about this week. Talking about DIYs.
DIY spots, yeah. It's something that Raleigh and I probably haven't had a lot of experience being part of even though, like, it's funny to me that as long as I've been in skateboarding, it isn't something that I've done a lot of or been a part of, just for whatever reason. Now, that depends what we define as a DIY spot.
Yes, that is the one thing that we were like, let's save this for the podcast, because we weren't too sure. Well, I think we both have opinions, but I don't know if they're the same one.
Right. So my opinion is, if you would count like the indoor skate parks that I've been part of building ramps and helping people build ramps in their backyard and different little obstacles made out of wood mostly, then I guess then I would have lots of experience with DIY. In my mind, though, a DIY is taking an outdoor spot and making, probably more than likely, using cement to do something a little bit more permanent.
For the most part, yeah.
So that's where I don't know. Maybe we need to get some comments back from our listeners as far as what they think that a DIY spot is.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the traditional sense that I think of it, I don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah. So I guess the way that I would think of it is, if we so the DIY in Portage right now is on somebody else's land, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, it's on someone else's property that
so if you're
doesn't use it.
trespassing, then it's DIY.
Yeah, then it's DIY, because it's just like that. But I feel like, even though what we built here, like, is technically a skate park, right? And it's like a legal, like, we have this place to build a skate park, or like at the Campbell Soup, you bought that for a skate park. You're allowed to make a skate park there. But these other spots, it's someone else's land, I guess.
Okay. So you're not thinking as far as how it's constructed, but more so the location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I would say more the location than the.
Yeah, and there's some value in that, because I think of the DIY spot in Portage, and I had said at the beginning that it was more about if it's made out of cement than if it's made out of wood.
Yeah.
And yet, like, Blair and Hunter have put a lot of wood obstacles there.
Yeah.
And it's still DIY. Like, it's definitely, like, I give them credit for that. And I wouldn't say that it's not, just because it's wood structure. And if I look way back to when we had the platform in Portage, most of the stuff there was wood. And it was definitely DIY, because guys would just build stuff, whatever, like, people would just build whatever they wanted there.
Do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that I'm still clear on what a DIY is, and would love feedback on it. But yeah, I can see what you're saying, that when we create a space that's for skateboarding, it's even though we're doing it ourselves, I can see how you wouldn't necessarily classify that as DIY, because we're not letting just anybody come in and build whatever they want there. So maybe that's what it's more about, is the freedom or the lack of structure around who gets to decide what goes at a DIY spot.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's the confusing thing too, because also I'm thinking of the courts in Vancouver, and so they got permission. It's at a junior high school or whatever, right? In their old tennis court that they didn't use. So they have to ask the school they had to ask the school and make an agreement with the school to put stuff there. But it's people, it's like people from the community that they're like, yeah, okay, you can put stuff there, but there's random people that'll drop stuff off and they're like, okay, you're not allowed to do that. So like, is that a skate park? Because a lot of people would say that's a DIY, but they have an agreement with the school,
but it's more organized, so not just anybody can come in and build. And a lot of DIY spots, I think, are policed by the people that kind of started them.
Yeah.
I know of other ones in the States or wherever where if I showed up and started doing something there, I could possibly be killed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that I was under the impression that it's just whoever builds whatever, and it's like on someone else's land kind of thing. But now that I'm thinking of something like the courts, they've had permission.
Right.
Where usually DIYs is it's other abandoned spots, like the one that I also hit on in BC.
Right.
It was an abandoned spot.
Right.
Right.
And then I think also of like the DIY piece of our skate spot here in town where we have this skate park. So we have permission. The skate park has been put there by the city on the parking lot, some ramps and stuff. And then I go ahead and throw some cinder blocks up and throw a parking curb on top of it. And now that is a DIY spot at the skate park because we did it ourselves. We didn't buy the obstacle, but again, it's hard to define what exactly a DIY is. And I didn't take the time to Google it before either because I thought, well, we'll just talk about it and we'll figure it out. But
yeah, I thought we'd be able to figure it out between us, but I'm kind of lost.
So we definitely can use some input on this one, listeners, please.
Yes.
So that being said, let's talk about however you define DIY. Let's talk about your experience with DIY and locations you've done, been to, visited, and your opinions on these things.
So I guess when I started skateboarding on that little cement pad I talked about last episode, I would like put stuff together, but so that was like my first experience with DIY, I guess. Because I just like it was like just makeshift kind of stuff.
Right.
It wasn't an official DIY, but I remember putting this was before I was doing rails. Like I've only been able to do anything on a rail for like 2 years or something. But it was this really thin rail, and I put it on a 2x4, and I would ollie onto it and 50-50 down it until that was just a little memory to throw in there. But my first experience with a DIY is probably the spot beside the MCC.
Okay.
Yeah. It like the first time I ever went there, there was a parking curb going off of the little gap. It's about a foot high gap or whatever. And we used it as a rail.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit of a gap on the other side, and it was just nice ground. But I think that was the only thing there for a while since I started skateboarding.
Yeah. That's all there was there for a lot of years.
Yeah. Until Blair and Hunter added a bunch of wood. They added like a box, a little rail, a kicker, and they made a little bank, I think.
Right.
And then like people just threw things in there. So that would probably be my first experience with the DIY. I haven't found a lot of them. A lot of people I've heard like keep a lot of theirs secret.
Right.
Just so it's not getting overcrowded, because I think a lot of people like going to DIYs because it's more street. It's not like going and hitting a set off a building or something. It's
yeah. It's interesting. I think one of the first times that I can think of is when the Scam guys built the kicker at PCI, which was Prince Charles at that time, I think, the school. And so for those of you who don't know PCI, one of the buildings has the side of the building probably till about 5 feet high is like a sloped cement bank. The wall is sloped.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't go all the way to the ground. There's about a foot from the ground where it goes in. So you can't just ride onto this wall. It has a gap at the bottom, probably a foot, I'm guessing. Almost a foot anyways.
It's like that really rough wall ride right in the front by the football field.
Yeah, I'm thinking on the side, though, where the parking is.
Oh,
where
yeah.
It doesn't, like it's actually a gap at the bottom. Like it's got an overhang.
Yep.
And so on the south side of the school, the scam guys went and picked up some Quickcrete, and they basically made a kicker that filled in that foot gap to the wall.
Wow.
And I thought this is amazing, even though it's like to do it at a school is pretty crazy, but like we all had looked at that wall so many times.
I still look at it.
and so here they made it so it was skatable. And if I remember correctly, I think the next day it was already torn down. So I don't know if anybody actually got to skate it. Yeah. We'll have to ask some of the scam guys if we ever have them on about that and if they remember, because I'm not sure if it ever got skated or not. It'd be fun if it did to see if there's footage with that.
Yeah.
So that would be my first experience of a local DIY. And then, like I said, when we put the curb on the blocks and used PL 400 to glue it to the concrete or to the asphalt, and that thing, it's been there, I don't know, maybe 10 years, and it's still solid.
Yeah, I still skate it. I love it.
Yeah, so that turned out really well, and yeah, it was just a matter of finding some cinder blocks and throwing a parking curb on it, and because at that time we had no rail there, and so I just thought we needed something that people weren't going to steal. Other than that, I guess I don't know, like, again, not knowing how you define a DIY, because we also have, like, when we've done our California trips, we've hit spots in California that are pretty famous spots that were not designed to be skate parks, but they were used for skateboarding. For example, Third and Army. I don't know if you call that a DIY, because you don't, like, other than like there was a kicker that was put up there. Yeah. Other than that, they're just skating it the way it was made.
I think that'd be just
a
street skating. Yeah, just a spot.
Yeah, and like in Costa Rica, there was a spot that we would go to by the train station where you could lift the tile and put a deck on edge to hold one end up, and that created a kicker.
Yeah.
So, and you've seen that in skate videos too.
Tons,
I guess that's somewhat of a DIY, but it's not a permanent thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would probably be my earlier experiences. I think I've, like, probably since then been to a few, like, decent ones where people have done really good work. When I was in Honduras a few years ago, there was no actual skate park that's been built there, but they had a couple of DIY spots that were quite well done. And I was always impressed that a country where isn't an actual skate park, that these guys are able to build their own without having, like,
anything to compare it to.
They just, from pictures or whatever, they built these spots, which, to look at them, you would say it's a skate park.
Oh, really? It's that well built?
Yeah, like they've just gone on a basketball court, a cement basketball court, and, like, turned it into a skate park.
Really?
And so that always, like, I love that stuff. I love it when I see guys being innovative and taking matters into their own hands.
For sure.
When they don't have the ability, like in Honduras, there wouldn't have been ability to get a actual skate park built there. So
actually, like, I haven't had a lot of experience with DIYs, or what I consider DIYs. But this summer, or it was in September, start of September, I went to on a road trip to Vancouver by myself, and I broke down in Golden, BC for 4 days, I think.
there's worse places you could break down.
It's true. They have a real terrible skate park. It was, I think it's more for bikes and scooters. Just unnecessarily huge things for such a small town.
Right.
Like a lot of small towns have.
Yeah.
But I think it was more for bikes and such. And but across the tracks, really close to where I was staying, they had a DIY that was amazing. Like it was my first like actual DIY. I wouldn't say actual DIY because what we have here is a DIY technically,
Right.
but like where it's like, I should post pictures about it. It's
Right.
it's got like graffiti
It's just more developed
everywhere,
than what we have, right?
and it's like, well, yeah, very well. Like whoever's building it is like amazing at cement work. There was a quarter pipe with pool coping.
Nice.
I'm like, how many DIYs do you see that has something that? I mean, probably enough, but I haven't been to a lot. But
Right.
like, it just seems so detailed there. And then on my way back from Vancouver, I stopped there again to pick up some supper, and I skated the DIY a little bit, and they built new stuff like within 4 days or whatever.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's a very active DIY spot that is being used and is being developed.
Yeah. But it was weird because I would be there like all day, all like for the 4 days I was there, and I met two people once. Like they were just there, and I actually didn't even bring my board. I thought I dropped something there, and I went to look for it, and it wasn't there. And that was the only time I met guys there, and I didn't even get to skate with them.
So one of the questions that I have is, what makes a DIY spot so appealing?
I don't want to say anything too ridiculous, but I think like so skate parks are very designed for like, they're like training grounds kind of thing.
Right.
Like that's how I would view a skate park, is more of it makes it very easy to skate. And I guess DIYs, I would say, sometimes are easier to skate than the streets, because you don't have to go out and look for a spot, because they have like some DIYs will have a quarter and like a rail, and so it's like closer to it's like I would say it's the midway between a skate park and street. I don't know exactly what makes it appealing. I guess probably most of it is because it's made by skaters and they've seen the skaters make it.
Right. I think the idea that this is something that we created and now it's skatable, and like, rather than depending on somebody outside of the community to provide us with something, it's like done from within. And so I think that there's an appeal to that, you know, it's just like any kind of art that we might do. Like, there's an appeal to art that's done by somebody you know over you know, somebody you don't. And so if you're part of a process or part of the project, I think there's a lot of just ownership, and I think that's part of it. DIYs typically would be, like you were saying, they're not street, but neither are they a skate park, because they'll be a little bit rougher than a skate park.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes a little bit more skill still to skate a DIY than it would a skate park. And so there's like that idea that like you think about it, even in videos, it's more legit to have a DIY spot in a video than an actual skate park.
Mm-hmm.
And so like people don't question if you have a DIY spot. And so I think that's part of it, right? Like the idea that this isn't as clean as a skate park,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little bit harder to skate, and yet we can build stuff that is skatable or whatever. It's ownership, I think, is a big part of it that makes it appealing. And you can build what you want to skate, right? That I think that's appealing to people, that they can build it the way they want to be able to skate it.
When they want to build it too. Because like skate parks, sometimes the skaters in the town will have a say.
Right.
But once it's built, it's built.
Yeah.
But with a DIY, if I say I would want a new rail there, add a new rail.
Yeah.
Whereas in the skate park, well, besides our skate park, we added a rail this summer, but most skate parks you can't just go and add a random rail with it without. Well, we did have to go to the city and ask and whatnot, but with a DIY you just add it when you want.
Yeah.
So I think, I understand why they're appealing. Yeah,
and they definitely are. I know over the years, I've had lots of conversations with people about creating DIY spots, or even just a little spot like where they make a barrier skatable or something, which I would count as DIY.
Yeah.
The Skate and Create video submission by, is it Meow?
Yes.
Meow Skateboards.
Yeah.
And in that video, a lot of that was about DIY, and like I really enjoyed that video and watching how they created spots and then skated them, and it was inspiring to get out and do DIY for sure.
Yeah.
And so
that was a really cool video. They'd be like, find a grass gap or something and put a rail in it.
Yeah, stick it in the ground.
Yeah, stick it in the ground, take it out, get back in the van and go. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of that is, I guess, part of the appealing. Whatever. I'm not going to repeat myself, but. So now, after discussing DIYs, let's talk about our local DIY that we kind of mentioned already. So this is probably our biggest attempt at working on a DIY. Like we said earlier, Blair and Hunter had put some work into it, brought some wood obstacles and such, and we're using the spot pretty regular, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, they made it a lot more fun than it used to be.
For sure.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah. And then, so we wanted to do our part and came up with the idea of putting a ledge coming off of the drop.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about that.
Yeah. So this summer we, I think it started off, you were telling me how you admired the look of Pier 7 in a lot of the videos, and just how the ledge just goes out. And I understand the how that's appealing, because it's easy to get on and then you get the feeling of the drop afterward. And so we decided this summer that we wanted to build one, and so we did. We got some cinder blocks, and then parking curbs. What do you call those? Parking curbs?
Parking curbs, yeah.
Yeah.
So cement parking curbs. Yeah.
So we got 3 of those, flipped them upside down, and then put PL Premium on them, and
Glued them in place.
glued them in place, and then put the we put it hanging off a little bit, and then a little bit on the gap or on the platform part. Put cement over it, and then we put metal bed frame on the side. And I skated that quite a bit, actually. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it too. It gave me a lot more confidence for in the future when we have other ideas. I've actually quite a bit on Instagram. I've looked at different people's building quarters and stuff, and I'm like, oh, getting excited.
So, talk a little bit more about the construction of it. Like what, about the experience of constructing it, maybe. Like, was it, I don't even know what to ask. Like,
it was pretty frustrating for a bit.
So what made it frustrating?
Mostly, I think it was mostly the cement that was frustrating because for one half of it, we made the cement too dry, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of went on a little bit rough. And then the other half was too soupy, and it kind of it was a little bit harder to keep under control, eh?
Yeah, so our lack of experience working with cement was not helpful.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe the more things we build, probably the better we'll get at it. But
In my opinion, though, for both of our first experiences with DIY, I think we did pretty good.
we'll see how it holds up after a winter.
Well, here's the thing. I think I sent you pictures of this. I went there like couple months ago, or probably about a month ago, and someone's taken some kind of hammer or something to it.
Right. So we'll see what repairs need to happen come spring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I was pretty happy with the end product while we were building it. It was hard to, like, without the experience working with cement and just kind of winging it. There's definitely things I would do differently now, but for our first project, I was pretty happy with it, and I'm excited to see some clips on there. Mm-hmm. I want to see something go down on it. We've tried to film some stuff and just haven't had a real nice land on it yet.
What do you want to see off of it?
What do I want to see off of there? I would love to see like a manual to kickflip. Would be cool. I think frontside flip off of there would be pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. How about you? What do you want to see off of there?
Yeah, that's a tough question. This is probably unrealistic because it's pretty low. I'd love to see someone do a backtail or some kind of backtail variation, something in, something out, or just a backtail would be sweet. That's one of my favorite tricks to watch.
Right.
If they're done right, they're just
backtail so on there would be pretty sick, no doubt about it. Yeah. But you're right, it is like it's pretty low to get onto. Yeah. But yeah, somebody with skill better than mine should be able to do it.
I'm going to call out Joel on that one. He's been trying his backtails for a bit, getting better at them.
Yeah. Yeah, Joel should be able to do a backtail on there.
I imagine, yeah.
So after that experience this summer, building that one piece there, what you kind of touched on it already, but what is kind of your dream then for the future? Like, do you have more ideas for that spot? Do you have another spot that you want to develop? Talk about where you want to take DIY.
Yeah. I'd love, like, I'd love to build a quarter. I think, I mean, that's the one obstacle I can do most tricks on. Like, I have the most tricks on quarters just because it's.
I feel like a quarter or any transition is definitely going to be the most challenging
to build
DIY
for sure.
structure to build.
Yeah, to make it solid and like not flaky or like and level and whatnot.
And smooth. Yeah, smooth is.
Yeah. There's also this. There's this one spot in Golden, like the DIY. There was this one thing there that they had. It was this parking curb, and then it had like a bit of a wally onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like it. I don't know how tall. It'd be like a foot high, maybe a little bit taller, around there anyway. And I think that would help me like not learn slappies, but it definitely, while I was there, it helped me like understand how to get onto a wall ride kind of thing, because it's just like kind of just like running into it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
for our listeners, just to clarify, Rolly and I are obsessed with slappies.
Yes.
We can't really do them.
Yeah, neither of us can do them.
But we really want to. And this summer we had really wanted to learn, and we worked on it a little bit. And yeah, I think we improved a little bit, but we got a long way to go. And I don't think we can say that we've mastered the slappy yet. But we are obsessed as it seems to be like a trick that's kind of in the, what would you call it? Like it's a fad right now, maybe, or like it seems to be a popular trick.
Yeah, trendy.
Yeah. That's a good word for a trendy trick. And so we really want to get the slappies, and so.
And I thought it was trendy because it was easy, and people were just like, "Oh, let's goof around with this." But I'm like, "Oh man, I put so much work into it, and it's so hard to understand." Maybe if someone like throws some real good advice, but
yeah, I don't know. Like from the research I've done and talking and listening to some of the pros that are doing it now, they would agree that it's not easy.
Yeah,
and so that was helpful for me.
Yeah,
to understand that it's not just me. It is actually a difficult trick to learn and to master, to make it look good anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the biggest thing, is to make it look good. It can be a challenge. And so yeah, that was helpful for me to not beat myself up quite as much at the difficulty of it.
Yep, I agree.
So anyways, let's go back to DIY spot in Golden.
Yeah. So that parking curb that was on a steeper bank, I would love to build one of those. I can't remember. I don't know what you would call it. I think bank to curb. I actually sent it to this one account on Instagram that I follow. It's called Thick Boy Skate. It just gives me motivation. Bigger guys that can skate. And I sent them a video of me doing it, and I was like, "Don't post this kind of thing, but just like, this is a cool little spot." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's sick. That's I think they just call it a bank to curb."
Right.
But it's just like an easier way to do slappies. Because I would come like straight on it and then go sideways. But yeah. And no, I will not post it on our Instagram. It's basically just going in like tiny little 5-0, 5-0 scrape. Yeah, I really like that. That's what I would build. What about you? What do you think?
I think for me, the difficulty of the quarter, or even like doing like a corner bowl thing, like or a half bowl or something like that, it really intrigues me. I love the idea of it. I'd be so scared of doing it well. But if there's a dream obstacle to build in a DIY spot, I think that would be it. Like if a guy could build a really nice quarter or quarter bowl type obstacle, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I think it was this fall. I brought this to Steve about a DIY spot that we could possibly look into. So all these things are going through my mind just because the DIY and portage kind of got a kick in the butt. It'd be cool to have a spot like this. I found a little spot. It's right beside the highway. I won't put out the location right now, just in case it doesn't happen and people. But it's a little spot in between the highway that has a cement pad. It might have a bit too many cracks, but I think in the summer we're gonna clean it up and I'm gonna look at possibly doing stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a little hard getting people out there that don't have their license, though, because you do have to drive to it. You can't walk to it.
Yeah, it's out of town, which would make it a touch safer as far as it not being vandalized like the one in town was. Yeah, and I guess one of my concerns with the old hotel spot and developing that one more is the little bit we've done has kind of flown under the radar. You don't really see it too much from public spaces. But if we start to build more there, like even if we put a corridor there, I think it might get some attention. And then I'm worried about the whole thing being shut down, which would be very disappointing. And so that's the worry that I have with adding to that spot. Mm-hmm. But we'll see what happens this summer. We'll see what the other guys from the skate crew are thinking and want to do, and we'll see. Maybe we have some ambition to try and develop some more stuff there.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm. So, sermon alert. One of the things about DIY and skateboarding, like finding spots that like are street spots or urban spots, whatever, is it's one of the cool things about skateboarding that I've always loved is and been, I guess, proud of as well. Like I think of like all the years of doing skate trips and you're rolling into a new community and everybody in the van has their eyes peeled for spots. Mm-hmm. Right? And it doesn't matter where you go, where you're driving. Everybody, if the vehicle has skaters in it, there's somebody pointing out spots everywhere.
Yeah. Drives Lissy crazy.
Right.
When I'm driving with her in the city.
Yeah, right. As a non-skater, she's like, what?
Yeah. She's also actually recently been pointing them out. She'd be like, oh, do you see that one?
And so, for me, taking guys on trips all the time, and I'd be in the driver's seat, I'd be driving, and I'd see spots, and I'd just sit there and wait, and sure enough, somebody in the van would call it out. And it was just this fun game I played in my head where I'd just be like driving along, it's like, oh, there's a spot, and sure enough, somebody in the van would point it out. And and for me, it's an awesome thing to have that, like, just know that other people have the same mindset as you. And like the idea that I see a spot and I know somebody else is going to see it and call it out. And I remember when I'd ride the bus all the time in Costa Rica and I just sit there and I just see so many spots in San Jose, in the capital city there. And I'd often think like the other people in this bus just see whatever. They see urban areas, sidewalks and steps and and different things, and I'm seeing them through completely different eyes than what they are. Like, I'm seeing something that is very useful or utilitarian for skateboarding, right? Like I know that if I see a spot and somebody else that doesn't skateboard, they'd see that spot and it's like, that's nothing. And yet I know that, like, if I brought 20 skateboarders there, everyone would have a blast, right? And so just seeing value where other people don't see value is a fun part of being in skateboarding. And it reminds me of a lot of times where I've talked about Jesus and how he was such a rebel, which I always say skateboarding is based on rebellion. I
agree.
We look at the world differently, and we're not willing to conform to the way the world wants to see things. And Jesus is the same. And that's why my faith and skateboarding are such a good fit together, is because he sees everything differently than the world as well, as most people. And he would see things having value where other people would not see value. And so even in somebody like me, where maybe people don't see me having much value, but he does, and he knows how to make use of that value. And same for anybody that is listening, it's the same thing. Like, he sees our value, and that is, for me, that's so key in skateboarding and with the way that I view Jesus, which is pretty cool.
Amen. I've often thought that way too, is like with Jesus being rebellious, is like, yeah, it's just like there's so many of the religious leaders, we're always telling them, like, you can't do that, whatever, but he's like, he's God, right? So it's like, yeah, he can. Like, but he was like going against the law, but it was, yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely seeing it through different eyes than what they were.
Yeah.
And he wasn't scared to rebel against the status quo of the day.
Yes.
Which is the way I see a skateboard community as well. Sometimes it's not always constructive. Sometimes it's in a destructive way, but it is a rebellion to the regular. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just a cool parallel that I find, and not everybody might be interested in that, but when I think of DIY spots, that's one of the things that I think about, and so I thought it'd be good to share my thoughts on that.
Nice. Well, this has been an episode.
Before we end, we have some shout-outs.
Yes, we do, on our Patreon.
Right. We haven't wanted to push the Patreon on our episodes yet. We wanted you guys to get hooked on listening to us before we started doing shameless self-promotion. But we do have people that see value in what we're doing and have signed on as patrons on our Patreon account. And we are super excited about that. Not only does it help us to do this, but it also supports our skate park. And for those of you that don't know, our little indoor park that we run in the winter here is free of charge for the kids. And so we have to raise money outside of user fees in order for them to be able to come and skate for free. And so as part of our Patreon, if you sign up, you are helping support that project so that kids can skate for free. And who doesn't want to help kids skate for free?
Exactly.
And so you can check that out at Patreon/ Platform Skate if you want to be part of that. And we would love to have you, but we're happy to have you here regardless.
Yes.
But we do want to give a shout out to our 2 patrons that have signed up so far.
Yes.
And I have to also clarify, as we say that there are 2 patrons, when we're recording this, we have not uploaded an episode yet. And so these are people that have signed on before they've even heard an episode from us.
Yeah.
They have a lot of faith in us.
Yeah.
That this is something worth supporting.
Yeah. One of them signed up before we even recorded
Right.
our first episode.
So the fact that they have that much faith in us, they deserve a shout out.
Absolutely.
So who are our 2 patrons?
So our first patron is Melissa Momin.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. And our second one is Joel Reimer.
Yes, Joel.
Yeah. So
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support.
so much.
Yeah. And if any of you listening want to be part of that, feel free to check it out. And also feel free to comment below on YouTube or
Give us
rate
a
us,
rating and review.
review
Wherever.
wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And we are always open to suggestions as far as what you want to hear from us. So feel free to leave comments.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that was an episode for sure.
It was an
Exciting.
episode.
All right. I guess we'll see you next week then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bye.